fellas, I wanted to do this video in October to help celebrate Halloween. However, stuff kept getting in the way, and also had to really quickly replace a light bulb that burned out in my place. And I can tell by how bright this light scheme is this time, and will probably be for a while. So, anyway, hey, now that I've gotten this all set up, it's time to look back at 20, frankly, very terrible years of Resident Evil movies. Even at a time where the video games be going from strength to strength once again, and the film adaptation just never seen a pass for muster. So, also I did something that I had not done before. I watched every single movie once again for purposes of this video. I only seen them once each time prior, with subsequent viewings being done through the lens of someone like CinemaSins or Faithless, neither of which seem to be fans, so let's get to it. First, a little bit of background. How that one of the people who was first considering making that movie was George A. Romero, who actually directed commercial for the games in Japan. And while it was initially believed that Capcom rejected his script, which I have read and have enjoyed, it was actually the producer Constantine Films that passed on it. I suppose that Romero could be bullet with dodging or had directed films of his own making the remainder of his life, and instead the full elder Paul Anderson. I'm going to be very open about how I feel. I've not liked a single film of his in Front Horizon, nor have I liked a single video game adaptation of his such as Mortal Kombat. So let's get to it with 2002's Resident Evil to start with. I mean, there are some people who only think this one is worthwhile, but honestly don't see it. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, I'm already seeing problems that will metastasize in this one to the rest of the movies, in terms of the plotting and the action over the horror, and of course, the focus on Alice as by Mia Jovovich over the other characters that were in the games. I'll admit, the music is fine as of the first 15 minutes when the T-virus first breaks out in the compound, known as a hive, as opposed to other settings they could have used. Who's me when, but apart from that, that's about it for the pauses for me. I would say, hey, I mean, I also don't get. I think I did not care for it when I first saw it on TV, I believe, and I was 11 years old at the time. And I think the years have not been kind to it, to be honest. I mean, even the normally lively Michelle Rodriguez seems embalmed. I just feel that this movie was better when it was called Cube, to be honest, especially with like the laser hallway that cuts people up. And it made a moderate $40 million domestically, $102 million worldwide, and a $13 million budget. But here troubles begin with a mediocre film, which inevitably get a sequel. And even though Hope Anderson only directed all but two of the movies, he still wrote and produced them all, so his essence is all over them. That's a nice word of news. 2004 saw the release of Resident Evil Apocalypse. 2 movies in, and arguably, in my case, we're already at the point of no return. And out of all the character derailments, I would have to say that the Nemesis is my least favorite. I mean, ironically, giving her a backstory ruined a lot of people's character. The film was a very loose adaptation of the third game, which is one of my favorite installments of the franchise. And definitely, he shows how I never expected anything more after this one. I mean, I will admit, there is some kind of train wreck in the whole 2000s excess, and I will admit the Cerberus dog kill these in cafeterias hibachi is actually kind of funny, albeit unintentionally. It made $51 million domestically, $120 million worldwide, and a $45 million budget, meaning we'd get another film for a third outing. 2007 we see Resident Evil Extinction, a third film, and its ideas seem much more barren than its desert setting. It's fitting it's in Nevada because this is where the series officially became, to me, Reno. Resident Evil in name only, where personally, if I wanted to watch a series that was more action than horror and was a global vanity project for the filmmaker's wife, I think I'll watch Underworld. And that being the case, they also advertised the Las Vegas scenes extensively, as I remember. I was 15 when they were really putting this out. They didn't even show them until halfway through the movie, and somehow it still made $51 million domestically, $148 million worldwide, and that's $12 million budget. But I mean, unfortunately, this will continue into the new tens, which almost seems like a lifetime ago, or close to it, film wise at least, even. Yeah. 2010, we see the release of Resident Evil Afterlife, which also shows how the Agent Smith, Wesker, as I call him with Ouroboros, actually being less impressive than the game counterpart, and admittedly, a Resident Evil prison episode is not a bad idea. No one's impossible to pull off. Main Covert extra pretty cool, but this doesn't do it for me. The final fights are actually more ridiculous than the infamous Burly Brawl in Matrix Reloaded, and the 3D effects. I mean, what the heck can I say? I mean, it's definitely more like the just shoving things in there 3D rather than actually using a hand experience like with Avatar or How to Train Your Dragon or Pixar's Over, name a few. So, yeah. And I also found it pretty weird that they felt the need to adapt from Resident Evil 5 Jill's infamous chest jewelry, but not her actual character, her, and of course, if cast her. And frankly, I don't blame her. I mean, I also noticed that Ali Larder playing Claire is definitely kind of odd. I guess Final Destination money only gets you so far. It made $60 million domestic, $300 million wide, and a $60 million budget. So this was set to continue even as audiences' patience began to wear thin, except for the least discerning tastes cinematically. 2012, where the world did not end, and unfortunately neither did this franchise. With Resident Evil Retribution, lousy, rotten karmic retribution, and I mean, I also know that Leon survived despite the Vatican City Times claims otherwise. I mean, of all the ways to bridge people, I wouldn't have gone with like a newspaper tie-in personally. And there's also one more left to go after this. I will admit the plot is marginally simpler than the other films. It's basically escape from Umbrella Prime in Russia, and for the most part, it's pretty absurd. I mean, especially when they get to DC, setting up some big fight, which, spoilers, ends up not happening. It would basically be like if Marvel skipped over after making Age of Ultron and Phase 2, skipped over the Infinity War, and then went straight to the Endgame and the 5-year time skip within that, no less. So, but I will say this: one more left to go after this. I mean, before I get to end this, I'll also note that the whole "My Name is Alice" recap is something of a terrible online dating profile, as I joke. But I also note that the timelines get so confusing, and somehow, as a guy who's able to keep track of other complex timelines on film like Turner and X-Men, this is the one where I just finally said, forget it, and if it wasn't for her like the wikis, I wouldn't be able to keep track at all. But here we are with 2017's Resident Evil, the final chapter, and with a slight dip domestically at the box office of $42 million, though a solid $240 million for $165 million budget last movie, I totally understand why they did that, because by the time she got to this final speech at the end, I'm all, no more sequels, and good riddance. And I will say that on top of like the bridging of everyone but Alice, Claire and Wesker. Her This actually might be the most nonsensical one of them all, where they not only develop a cure for the virus, but also are reveal that Alice was actually a clone of Alicia Marcus, and just neglecting how that basically caused all kinds of gymnastics from the games mentally. He That's still all raises like question and answers, but even with the anticlimactic like, takedown of Wesker, I honestly don't care because it made the movie short at this point. And even if they weren't planning on making this the last one of this franchise, the Andersonverse, they would have done so anyway because even though it made a solid $312 million worldwide on its $40 million budget, at $27 million domestically, hey, it's the lowest grossing installment of this franchise domestically, at least this version of it. Looking back on these films collectively 20 years later is kind of odd, to say the least. I mean, I'll admit they're not the worst video game adaptations we've ever seen, but they're also not good films in my book. They're not good Resident Evil adaptations either, but they're no longer the absolute worst ones I've ever seen as of this year. And believe me, when I still have some choice words with that one, I believe one of the ones I used was Biohazard, especially since I got Community tab as well. And especially with stuff like Detective Pikachu, stuff like the Sonic films being pretty entertaining and successful. You have stuff that's tangentially like Free Guy and the Wreck-It Ralph movies. Heck, we even live in a timeline where not only are they rebooting the Mario series in animated form, it actually could be fun. That is a positive sign to me. And I will definitely see you all again very soon because I have more horror content and other stuff on the way this month. Till next we meet.